how to get rid of sciatica and get back to running coming up next. I've seen a lot of runners over the years who have come to me desperate because they can't run anymore. And running is what keeps them sane. And they're going crazy because they can't run. Their sciatica pain gets so bad and so debilitating that they're limping or they're grabbing their butt, then they can't sleep. And it's frustrating. And I get it because I know that pain and I know that running can significantly exacerbate the pain of sciatica. What I also know is that often it's kind of easy to fix if you know the right things to do to get yourself out of running induced or running exacerbated sciatica. So here's the thing. If you have a full-blown herniated disc, you're not running. You're not going to run. You're not going to do a lot of things for a while. You're going to be healing in that process. And you'll want to watch the other videos where I talk about one hip higher than the other, especially some of those ones from last week about that strengthening practice to rebalance and re-level the pelvis. Here's the thing. There are groups of muscles in the outer hip, a key muscle in the low back, and then the secret causes of problems with both of those muscles and muscle groups that really, if you can balance the tension or the tone in those muscles, you can run again. So let me break this down for you. The reason why running is so bad for sciatica is not often that it's aggravating the sciatic nerve. It might be a little bit about the pressure on the sciatic nerve, but that's going to come from the quadratus lumborum. It's also going to be if you have one hip that's higher than the other, or you have an imbalance in your pelvis, and then that's what's actually causing your sciatica symptoms. You see, the muscle in the low back called quadratus lumborum lifts the hip when it contracts. It also stabilizes the lumbar spine in weight-bearing movement. The quadratus lumborum is a key muscle to balance when you're experiencing sciatica symptoms. So you'll want to know, does one hip sit higher than the other? Is one side quadratus lumborum much shorter and the other side blown out and much longer? And is that really the cause of your sciatica? You need to know if you have one hip higher than the other, and you want to really focus your release on just the high hip side. I'm going like this because my right hip wants to sit high. So you just want to release the high hip side. Even if your symptoms are on the low hip side, your symptoms might be on the low hip side because the spine is opening up to that side and the sciatic nerve is being kind of pushed out to the side. So either way, when you're running, that QL is stabilizing your lumbar spine. It might be increasing tension that already exists, jacking up those trigger points in your QL and leading to your sciatica pain. So if you release the short side, the high hip side, and strengthen with quadratus lumborum, I'll put a link to that video, we just did that last week, strengthen with side plank, that low hip side, now you're in business. You can actually level that pelvis, balance the quadratus lumborums, and get yourself out of pain. So that's step one. Step number two is identifying if the pain is actually coming from your glute min and glute med. Those are the outer hip muscles. We've been talking about those muscles all along this playlist. What we haven't discussed yet is that those muscles are actually what I call the rotator cuff of the hip. In weight-bearing movement, glute min and glute med contract to stabilize the femur in the socket in the hip joint so that you can move and be steady and stable so the hip doesn't give out and your pelvis isn't going all over the place while you're walking or running. When you walk, those muscles contract. When you run, those muscles very strongly contract. And if they're already loaded with trigger points, then it's going to increase your pain and discomfort significantly. Hey friends, popping in here real quick to let you know that Sunday, September 25th, 2022, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be live right here on the YouTube channel. I want to answer your questions. So write some things down. If you have concerns, if you have questions, join me live here on the YouTube channel Sunday, September 25th, 2022 at 4 p.m. I'll see you there. So if your pain is coming from glute min or glute med, which would be pretty much all the sciatica symptoms, weakness in the hip, like can't stand on that leg, hip giving out, that's a big key that it's glute min and glute med. If you don't trust that hip to stand on that leg to pull your pants up on the other side, then definitely you've got glute min and glute med trigger points. Again, running is going to significantly contract those muscles, and if they're loaded with trigger points, the trigger points are going to get really jacked up. You might get that iliotibial band pain. You might get that pain down to the foot. You might get hamstring aching, calf pain, pain in the pelvis, pain at the top rim of the pelvis, pain in the sacrum, pain at the SI joint, deep ache in the buttocks. So often coming from glute min and glute med. Now, the thing is, you can't just go to glute min and glute med and release them. Or you can't just go to the side with the QL and release that. You've got to understand the system. And that's what I'm here to help you understand, because secretly, your inner thigh muscles are wreaking havoc on that glute min and glute med, and also jacking one hip high on one side and contributing to the tension in the quadratus lumborum. So you got to roll out and release your inner thighs first. If you're not sure if one hip is higher than the other, just do a little rolling on both. Get on a foam roller, get on the balls, release some of the inner thighs. Then you can release the outer hips. Then you can release quadratus lumborum. If you do that a little bit every day, I guarantee you're going to feel better, especially if you don't have a herniated disc. Even if you do have a herniated disc, it's going to help your healing. This is key. This is like, the crux of being able to run again. Release the inner thighs, release glute min and glute med, and then release QL. Do some movement. Don't do deep stretches. Do moving stretches to hydrate those tissues. Do this practice. Start with a little bit smaller run, little bit of movement, and keep releasing the tissues. Try to run again after about a week or so. Just a short run, give it a try. I want to know, I want you to do this. I want you to leave a comment down below, because I have helped many runners get their sanity back and get back to running in the woods. Woods is better than on a track, because the track or road obviously can be much harder and more impact, making those muscles contract more. But I'm telling you, you don't have to give up running for good. You might be able to get many more years of running out of your body if you understand this. Inner thighs, outer hips, low back, they all go together. The inner thighs are also often the missing piece of the puzzle. So we're going to put some links down below in the description. You can see some inner thigh rolling. You can look back through the sciatica playlist, tons of stuff and tons of helpful information about these particular muscles. Thanks for watching.